Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful November the 13th, 2019. Ground of Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's exhausting. Just when you think you get a reprieve from sports, you turn around, even more and more is on. The NHL is playing, college basketball is playing, NBA, NFL, college football. Matter of fact, I even saw some college hockey last night.
College hockey, I'm telling you, there's a lot of things you can do with ice. It might be the number one resourceful universe happening. I guess ice is good for ice cream. It's good for putting in your libations. It's good for keeping your food from spoiling. It's a lot of good things. It's even ice in Washington, D.C. at the White House. A lot of good boys are treating each other very cold lately, Big C. I want to say it's all fair in love and war. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. I want to say Big C Sports brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google. Our Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, Big C Sports, you can follow us on Xfinity, Comcast Television. Also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. So, Big C, I know we give out this hotline because a lot of veterans, military veterans, they've been loved for a couple of days and then forgotten. Kind of like you go to a ballpark and they're serving you beverages. You get the hot dogs, you get the popcorn. But after the game's over, everybody goes home. And I'm sure that's how the military veterans feel. But we want to give out this hotline number, not just for veterans, but for civilians too. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, you know, so many people, Charlton, want to say to veterans, thank you for your service, and walk away at that point. Just like Veterans Day. After Veterans Day, everybody walks away and gets back to their normal, everyday routine.
Yeah.
But many of these veterans, when they come back, Charlton, from war and even service, they can't get back to a normal, everyday routine. They're without those people that they've been their support staff for years, Charlton, some even decades.
Yeah.
And when we think about trying to mesh back into society, it's a very tough road for a lot of people who've lived a structured life. And so many veterans have fallen to this horrific disease, Charlton, called suicide.
Yeah.
That we're losing some 20 veterans a day. And we have to find a way to stem this horrific disease. We have this number, the 800, the suicide prevention hotline number, Charlton, that is there for counseling, for a shoulder to lean on for these veterans, to have someone who cares about you, to listen to your problems and your plights. So this 800, suicide prevention hotline number, Charlton.
Yeah.
We need people to give that out more frequently, to friends, to family, to people they don't even know. People who know veterans, Charlton, this is a number that everyone should have in their pocket, just in case, because you never know when you need somebody to talk to. Write it on a bathroom stall wall, wherever you can, Charlton. Write it on a sidewalk.
Yeah.
Suicide prevention hotline number, Charlton, is there for all Americans, but mainly for these veterans who have no place to turn to when they come back in a time of need from serving this great country, Charlton.
It's so true. 800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. Also, you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get some help. I just really appreciate all the things that happen in the world of sports. And to me, it's something that we all in this country, especially looking at what's happening in Washington, D.C., a lot of people will never agree. There are husbands and wives that don't agree. There are people, co-workers that don't agree. A lot of times people just have a hard time seeing eye to eye. And I don't want to act like we're just a dumb, station that only wants to read scores to people. I do want to, before we get into, the talk about sports, because again, a lot of people, they don't get there. They don't even know what's going on in Washington, D.C., Big C. We have these hearings going on today, and the diplomats that are talking about the misgivings when POTUS in the Ukraine. And I know he was, sometimes justice is served by the universe. I remember the same president was asking about President Obama's birth certificate. Has anyone ever asked Donald Trump about his birth certificate? He seemed to care more about the investigations of Joe Biden and then about the Ukraine and our American sovereignty. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this investigation that he was trying to start in Ukraine, everyone knew there was inappropriate, Charlton. Even the Republicans who are trying to put up some type of sham to say, well, he did nothing wrong, but they won't say what he did was right. So that answers the question for itself. When we look at this president, we have a Justice Department. We have a system here in America to invest. We have all our people that can handle this thing.
Yeah.
He never asked our legal representatives, Charlton, to investigate the Bidens.
Yeah.
He's calling on a foreign entity to do this. If something was done wrong by the Bidens, Charlton, we have an attorney general of the United States that could have,
looked into it,
launched that investigation.
Yeah.
But this is a personal thing, Charlton, trying to deflect from things that he's done. He hasn't asked anybody to investigate his family, and we know that they've, from the emolument clause, Charlton, since being in the White House, they've made hundreds of millions of dollars. His daughter's gotten at least 10 patents while working in the White House with China, and all the rest of America is suffering because of the tariffs that he's put on China.
Yeah. So I know some people don't want to hear that. They just want to keep their head in the sand like Richard Nixon, Big C, and that's okay. Everybody has the right to remain ignorant, and they choose to, and that's okay. I want to just bring up this topic. I know baseball's over, and a lot of times people are looking what's going on in basketball, and of course football is like a 24-hour-a-day event. But I do want to just congratulate Major League Baseball Jacob deGrom. He's the 7th in National League to win 2 straight Cy Youngs, Big C. He joins a big list, a Mount Rushmore list. He joins Randy Johnson, Tim Lincecum, Big C, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, and then Greg Maddux, and I think one of the best ever, Sandy Koufax. Just want to get your thoughts on, and he's still a young man. That's the great thing about it. He's joining some players who are no longer playing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Jacob deGrom has been a dominant pitcher in the National League, Charlton, over the past 2 seasons, winning back-to-back Cy Young Award winners. And for a team that really hasn't been competitive, he's been one of the few bright spots in the Big Apple. His teammate yesterday, Pete Alonso, won the National League Rookie of the Year with a record-setting 53 home runs. So you look at the Mets organization, they have a couple of key elements that are winners, Charlton, and you got to get management to extend that a little further. Yep. But even when you look on the flip side of the ledger in the American League, Charlton, you got to look at Justin Verlander, who won his second Cy Young Award winner today, Charlton, beating out his teammate Clark. For that, Verlander got 17 first-place votes. Clark got 13.
Yeah.
And this is the team that came up 1 game short of winning the World Series.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in baseball, you appreciate it. It might be the most passive of sports. It's so quiet, but when you get the baseball experience that we just experienced, Big C, with the playoffs, there's really not a lot of things that can compare to it, because it's 7 games. You can make up for if you make a mistake in a couple of games, you still got a chance to make up. deGrom 11-8 on the season, had an ERA of 2.43, a league-leading 235 strikeouts, 204 innings pitched, Big C. Only 31-year-old. That's the amazing thing. He's not retired like a lot of the guys that he matched in winning back-to-back Cy Youngs, but when like Maddux and also Johnson. And when you think about what he did, he is a 31-year-old player. He outpointed Max Scherzer, who was a 3-time winner, and the ERA leader, Hyun-Jin Ryu, for the Dodgers, to become the 11th pitcher overall to win consecutive Cy Youngs. When you think of how long baseball has been played, a lot of the records that he's going to beat or break, these guys have already retired. And you know the way people can play longer now, it's not inconceivable to see him get another 2 or 3 before his career is over. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, potentially, Charlton, but as we look at the young arms that continuously come up in baseball, it's a young man's game. And you talked about two other pitchers, in Scherzer and Rue. Those guys are right there nipping on his heels. One of the things about being in the Mets organization, you're in the largest market in the United States.
Yeah.
So all the posters get an opportunity to see you.
Yep.
Where when you get those late night games, Charlton out west in Los Angeles, they don't always stay awake for those.
Yeah, they don't stay awake. But I mean, it's easy to say, well, someone was a dominant player and they were a clutch player or they were not, when the career's over. But when they're going through it right now, when you're driving through the arms, some pastor friends of mine say, when you're driving through a storm, don't stop. Just keep driving through it, Big C. So, and again, because West Coast, I've seen Tim Lincecum win with the San Francisco Giants. Madison Bumgarner, just as dominant a pitcher at times. And then Clayton Kershaw. I want to ask your thoughts from a guy in the South. I know you cover sports all over the world. But from the South, when you say the name Clayton Kershaw, does he strike fear the way Maddox did back in the day when he played for the Braves? Or is he considered maybe overrated, Big C? A lot of media hype, your thoughts?
No, most definitely, Charlton. He's been one of the best regular season pitchers in baseball the last 5 years. You can't knock his numbers, what he's had when he's on the mound. I mean, maybe he's gotten tired when it comes to playoffs. You think about the consecutive run that the Dodgers have had in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Maybe the season's a little long. They might want to think about load management with him like they're doing with the basketball players in Los Angeles. But Clayton Kershaw, regular season, over the last 5 years, one of the most dominant pitchers in Major League Baseball.
I want to take you back to the day where we had, I think Randy Johnson was about 6'7" to 6'10". They always add on inches, but sometimes guys say, I'm not 3 inches taller. But so Johnson, let's say between 6'7" and 6'10", and he had that height advantage, of course, on the mound throwing downhill. And I thought that he threw so hard that no one could really hit him. But even he, over time, you become better in your own mind as you retire. Of course, everybody's better 20 and 30 years ago. But how would you rank these Cy Young guys? If you had someone that you had to go into a game to win, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. We know they have closers now, so some of these guys wouldn't show up. But who would you put the ball in the hands of? Would you go with a guy like DeGrom? Would you go with Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, Greg Maddux, Sandy Koufax, Tim Lincecum? Or would you go with Randy Johnson, who seemed to be more imposing than those guys? Your thoughts?
Well, imposing is not always the thing that you need on the mound. I mean, your boy Aroldis Chapman is imposing in New York, and we saw what happened to him in the playoffs. He was easily giving up game-winning home runs.
Yeah.
Randy Johnson was a legitimate 6'10" pitcher with the Montreal Expos and a few other teams with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and all those guys are Hall of Famers that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So they had illustrious long careers that got them into the into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yep.
When I think about a guy that I would want to count on in the ninth inning, I think Greg Maddux would be the guy that I would lean on.
Yeah.
Greg Maddux had such command on the mound, Charlton. His breaking balls were phenomenal.
Yep.
And he started out his career, with the Cubs, ended up, with the Atlanta Braves, won a World Series down there, made a couple World Series appearances. But I like Greg Maddux and just the control he had around the plate.
Yeah, well, I want to get your thoughts also from the batter's box, because we talk about managers and the strategy, and of course we saw that in this last year's World Series. I thought it was a great series, especially if you're a Washington Nationals team and you win 5 on the road coming from behind. That's incredible. So we talked about great pitchers, and of course DeGrom, I think he's going to have, at least he has the opportunity to get another 2 over the next couple of years. And then I want to get your thoughts, though, because you go back in history so well. A lot of people don't do that nowadays. Let's say you got Tim Lincecum on the mound, or you got Randy Johnson, or you mentioned Greg Maddux. Is there a batter, and you're managing in the World Series, you got Game 7, you're down by 1. One of those guys are on the mound. What pitcher would you feel that your batter could come up and hit? Would it be a guy like Barry Bonds? Of course, everybody says Barry. I'd like Reggie Jackson. Would you trust a guy like Reggie Jackson coming up? Would it be Sammy Sosa? Would it be Mark McGwire? Is there anyone that you have no fear of these pitchers, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, when you look at it from a managerial perspective, they're going to put their pitcher in the best light. They're not going to let the best hitter from an opposing team go up there and just end the game in one swing.
Yeah.
And so as you talk about guys, coming up the plate to hit,
yep.
If I had my ultimate hitter, Charlton, and there's only two guys that I would choose between.
Yeah.
I would choose between the late Tony Gwynn and Rod Carew, Charlton. Those are the two guys that I would love to bring up to the plate because I know that they're going to make contact with the baseball and put the ball in play.
Yeah. That's a very, another name, infamous name, Pete Rose. When Pete Rose would make contact, you weren't talking about home runs, but you talked about getting on base. And I love when we go back and forth with the new crew, the new guys, and the old timers that you would put in the batter's box and say, go up and hit against that guy and not have any fear. So again, DeGrom, congratulations, and I look forward to have many more, Big C. And I want to go to another sport that a lot of people are talking about. When it comes to NFL football, everybody is so player-centric. And they'll say Tom Brady won the game. Tom Brady has 6 Super Bowls. Joe Montana has 4 Super Bowl championships. They'll say stuff like that. And oftentimes the coaches that coach these guys are kind of the afterthought. But I want to get your thought on NFL coaches, Big C, on the hot seat, and maybe looking for a job next year. And we know if they're African-American, they may get overlooked. They'll get brought in for the interview because of the Rooney Rule, Big C. But give me your thoughts. I want to just throw some names out there, and I want to get your thoughts on them like we did with baseball. Vic Fangio, Denver Broncos, he was brought in this year to replace Vance Joseph. Give me your thoughts on how confident you feel in Elway keeping him around. Your thoughts.
Well, he was brought in to replace Vance Joseph. They said that Vance Joseph wasn't a guy. He was an African-American coach in Denver. He only won 5 games last year. They brought in Vic Fangio, Charlton. He hasn't even won half that many games with 8 games to go in the season.
Yeah.
He is not the answer for the Denver Broncos. They brought him in. He's a defensive coach. They already had a tremendous defense. They need someone who can work some offensive magic.
Yep.
Joe Flacco has not worked out in the trade that they made to bring him in. He's on the IR. The second-round draft pick, Luck, out of Missouri, he was on the IR the first half of the season with a broken thumb. So they've had bad luck at quarterback. But they need to find a quarterback whisperer, an offensive mind, Charlton, that they can bring into Denver. They haven't had anybody since Gary Kubiak.
Yeah, that's true. And when you think about the Broncos, Big C, it's amazing that we would even think this great franchise and one-time proud franchise has a record right now that they're very embarrassed about. They're 3-6, Big C. They've scored 149 points and given up 170. You would not expect that for a Broncos franchise. I want to go to another player, actually another coach, and they call this guy a player's coach before the season began. And a player's coach, I don't know the difference between that and an owner's coach, Big C. Freddie Kitchens, and again, we want everyone to be successful. You can't please everybody. But Freddie Kitchens and the Cleveland Browns, there's admittedly something to be said for Cleveland finally landing their 3rd win of the season. But it's just their 3rd win of the season, and this is a team that made so many moves in the offseason that they were a penciled-in playoff team, but I can't buy that yet, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that 3rd win of the season wasn't about their offense, Charlton. It was more about their defense. They beat the Buffalo Bills, and we're trying to figure out if the Bills are a contender or a pretender.
Yeah.
But they didn't show any offensive spark when you think about all the weapons that they have with Beckham, Landry, Hunt, and Chubbs in the backfield, Charlton. So Baker Mayfield had a lackluster performance, and Josh Allen had even a worse performance for the Buffalo Bills. So you have to tip your hat to the Cleveland Browns defense and Myles Garrett for what they did in coming out with a victory. But that offense is still stagnant in Cleveland, and Freddie Kitchens, I don't think, be around to fix it next year.
Well, when you look at what they're doing on this season, Big C, think about it. Cleveland, all the publicity they had, they're 3-6 on the season. They scored 171 points. They've given up 221 points. And this is supposed to be the offense that would outshine their defense. And I want to see it happen in Cleveland. It's been such a long time. I mean, with Brian Sipe back in the day, Bernie Kosar, and the player that fumbled on the 1-yard line going in. I think it was I forgot his name. It eludes me at this time.
Ernest
Biner. But that it seemed like from that point, they have not been that same franchise. But I wish them the well. And then if you stay in the state of Ohio, which has a lot of high school football talent, even a lot of college talent, Zach Taylor, Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Marvin Lewis was told, let's get this guy out of here. We can't win with him. But it seems like they can't win without him. Zach Taylor, Cincinnati Bengals. Another week, another loss for the Bengals. They're 0-9, which is embarrassing now because everyone was laughing at the Miami Dolphins just a couple of weeks ago, Big C. The only winners team in the league. To make matters worse, Taylor didn't even put up a fight against the Baltimore Ravens. It's as if they rolled over, and you can tell when a dog has fight in him and when a dog doesn't. Big C, your thoughts?
That was actually an embarrassing loss to the Baltimore Ravens over the weekend, 49-13, Charlton. And it was a laugher for the Ravens, as you can see the players being jovial on the sideline.
Yep.
But Zach Taylor was brought into Cincinnati, supposed to be this quarterback whisperer who learned under Sean McVay out in Los Angeles. At Marvin Lewis's time had run its course in Cincinnati. They said the organization wasn't going to get any better under Marvin Lewis. Actually, the organization has gotten worse since they've gotten rid of Marvin Lewis. Sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for and you don't miss what you had until it's gone, and that's where Cincinnati is right now.
Yeah, it's a shame. And when you look at Cincinnati, because numbers don't lie, they're 0-9. They've scored 137 points. They've given up 259 points. And you know, they said that Vontaze Burfict was a problem, and he was, cost them a lot of points and penalties. But at least he had an attitude. I'm not condoning his attitude and how he tried to hurt people. But they had an attitude where they at least put their hands up in a fight. You ever see a bully on campus or sometimes a bully in real life? And they say, put your hands down or give me your lunch money. And some guys put their hands down. They won't even fight for what's theirs. It seemed like at least Vontaze Burfict, when they had him there, and Marvin Lewis, at least they were fighting. Now it seems like they play football with their hands down, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Cincinnati just seems to be lifeless when you look at an NFL team. I know everybody at the start of the season was talking about the Miami Dolphins tanking. They're on a 2-game win streak. The Cincinnati Bengals are on a 9-game losing streak.
Yeah.
And what's the answer in Cincinnati? They benched their starting quarterback. They got a backup quarterback with no experience. I mean, this experiment went bad in a hurry.
Yeah, it got bad in a hurry, Big C. A lot of my friends, they do that dating stuff on these date lines. I think you and I should start Big C Date, because you have women and men that are so desperate and they can't find people that they know to date them. They go online and they date strangers. I mean, they don't know if the guy just got out of jail or the woman just got out of jail, and they actually pay for these sites. I think it's the next gold mine. Who needs cannabis, Big C? Let's find lonely women and men and make them pay to meet each other. Dan Quinn, Atlanta Falcons, while their victory over New Orleans, it buys them a little bit of time, especially if you're Arthur Blank. But think about this team. Think about the last time they were in the Super Bowl. They had a 28-3 lead not many moons ago. They're 2-7 right now in the season. They're allowing 29 points a game, Big C. That's 5th worst in the league. And they're struggling to score more than 21 points each week. And I know people say, well, you can't blame the quarterback. But you got $155 million wrapped up in one player. And if he does one thing right, they say, oh, my God, he's back. They're 2-9, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, I mean, if you compare him to the quarterback out in San Francisco, Jimmy Garoppolo, who was 8-1 on the season, and Matt Ryan, who was making $20 million more than what Jimmy Garoppolo is, and they're only 2-7. You know, Dan Quinn got a reprieve for 1 week while they were out in New Orleans. I mean, I think that's fool's gold that they found it down there, and they had an outstanding defensive plan against the Saints.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's short-lived. You got to come back and play each week. I think they got a little banged up physically in that game.
Yep.
And I think they'll be back to normalcy this week in the NFL, Charlton.
Well, they got to do something. They built a new stadium. They did not build that new $2 billion Mercedes-Benz Stadium to lose. And when you look at the Falcons, Big C, they have scored. I mean, this is a team that's supposed to be able to score. They scored 191 points. They've given up 259 points. And when you think about they have the great Julio Jones, it's just not acceptable down there. But when you think about what's not acceptable, go to the #1 media market in the universe. That's the New York City New York Giants. Yeah, they play in the Meadowlands. But Pat Shurmur and the New York Giants, you think about it, Shurmur can't figure out how to scheme appropriately or rally the troops with a win. It's not simply that they lost to the New York Jets. I mean, people can win or lose a game. We know that. But it's the fact that the Giants allowed them to score 34 points. And this is a guy with Sam Darnold that says he's seeing ghosts. And this team in the Jets that even Darnold, they played a game where he didn't even go after a fumble. His own. I mean, so many things. The Jets are up and down. But the Giants, I would say they're one of the teams that's allowed to go year after year in the number one media market, and there's not even a lot of pressure on them to win. It just seems like they've accepted it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you think about it with the Giants, Charlton, 8 weeks ago, everyone said they had found their answer in their rookie quarterback, Daniel Jones, that he was the answer, that he was going to take them to the Holy Land.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, 6 straight losses later, Charlton, and people are questioning Sherman. They're saying, okay, he can't even beat the Jets. This is a team that struggled to score two touchdowns in any game that they've played, yet they hung 34 points on the New York Giants. So, I mean, he was on the hot seat before, but I think that he has lost complete control of this organization, Charlton. The Giants are going to be looking to replace him. They need to find somebody who can work with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, Charlton, because the scheme that they're running now is just not being effective.
No, it's not being effective. And you know how, and you said this before, and I still think we're going to see Eli Manning. When you look at what the Giants have done, they've scored 203 points and given up 289 points. And I know, from what I understand, when someone has a big ego, they won't listen until they get in trouble. But if you look at Jones and you look at Eli Manning, this is Eli's last season in New York for the Giants. But is there any way, and I think there is, because, I mean, their season's over, but you want morale, it's just my opinion. They're going to sit Daniel Jones before the end of the year and see if Eli has anything left in the tank for his swan song. Even if they don't do that, I think that would be the right thing to do, not just for Eli, but for the Giants' sake and their future quarterback. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, the situation with Eli, they're trying to preserve his legacy. They don't want him to have a losing record, career record in the NFL. Right now, he is a 500 quarterback sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
The Giants knew that they were going to have a lackluster team this year. If you put Eli in, he takes a loss, even 2 losses, Charlton. That's going to put him under 500 as a quarterback. That means he'll have a losing overall record in his NFL career. That's what the Giants are protecting against right now to get him into the Hall of Fame, Charlton, not feeling that he could get in as a sub-500 quarterback even with 2 Super Bowl victories.
Let me just get your thoughts. If you look at the Giants' maybe most successful coach, some people would say Bill Parcells, of course. You know, they got some Super Bowl championships under his belt, even though it was Bill Belichick's defense, my opinion. But if you were to go back to those days, back to the 80s, Big C, I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if they let coaches hang around too long if they did not have success, at least in New York. They even got tired of Parcells at a time, and Parcells went to the Giants, and then he went to the Cowboys, and then Jerry Jones gets tired of everybody. But do you think they would have allowed this under the days of Parcells? And I want to get your opinion, your thoughts.
Well, I think that Tom Coughlin is the best coach that the New York Giants had. The last 2 Super Bowls they won with Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning at quarterback.
Yeah.
Coughlin had a tremendous defense. When I look at Parcells, he did not win without Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick has won without being with him. So Tom Coughlin, I think, was the reason why the Giants stayed relevant for so long in the NFL. Once he left, this team fell off a cliff in a hurry.
Yeah, well, I do appreciate just back in history. I remember in San Francisco when Bill Walsh stepped down, George Seifert stepped in, and they had a couple other guys after that. But at the same time, there's something about that tradition of winning, and it seems to have eluded New York. The Jets haven't won in many moons, but they got rid of Todd Bowles thinking they would have a better team. I think they realized the mistake in that. I think the Cincinnati Bengals, they got rid of Marvin Lewis. I think they're realizing the mistake in that. There's still some knuckleheads that were saying, of all people, that Mike Tomlin might be wearing out his welcome in Pittsburgh, and I just don't see that. But I do know that when you have something going, they don't let it keep. They don't let sour milk stay in the fridge too long. But it seems they're doing that in New York City. We're going to take what's called the Big C timeout, the Big C pause. When we come back, we're going to talk about some things. I think controversy is good. Controversy sells in Hollywood. It also sells in Washington, D.C. We'll take the Big C timeout. We'll come right back, and we hope that you'll come back and listen to us in the second half. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. And you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on my two favorite apps called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Fire TV, Apple TV, and many other smart TVs all over the universe. I know controversy sells, Big C. That's what marketing is about. Make people afraid, and they'll go out and buy. Show people the boogeyman, and they'll go out and vote because they want to get rid of the boogeyman. Well, the NFL made a boogeyman of a guy who fought for liberty and justice for all, and that's the great Colin Kaepernick. This gentleman at the University of Nevada, he's one of the few quarterbacks in D1 history to pass for over 10,000 yards and rush for over 4,000 yards. Well, we know what he did with the 49ers. Took them to their last Super Bowl. I know people are so hyped now about this new regime for the Niners, but this guy took them there on Saturday. After 2 years, no public interest from any NFL teams, and we know that was collusion. Is this a publicity stunt, Big C, or a legitimate opportunity for Colin Kaepernick to sign with an NFL team? And I want to get your thoughts, Big C.
Well, it's a tough line to draw, Charlton, when you think about this. 2 years and no NFL teams make a legitimate nod for Colin Kaepernick to say, hey, we're going to bring you in for a tryout or anything. And, it comes down to the commissioner saying, okay, we're going to hold a tryout in basically the middle of the country in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And this is done on a Saturday, Charlton. When we look at all of what's being going on a Saturday, teams are traveling. Scouts are out looking at college players, Charlton, on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you're holding this workout on a Saturday, not on a Tuesday when teams have a day off after the weekend when everybody's available, GMs, head coaches, and even the scouts. This is being done on a Saturday. So, what teams generally really have an interest in Colin Kaepernick? You see all these teams struggling. There are 32 teams in the NFL. We know that there's only 2 capable backup quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
We know that there's only really 15 capable starting quarterbacks in the NFL based on records of teams and how they struggle. And to say that Colin Kaepernick, that over all these quarterbacks that have been signed, there have been 90 quarterbacks that have been signed by the NFL since Colin Kaepernick last played.
Wow.
These quarterbacks that have been signed. And so you're going to tell me that all of these 90, which half of them are not in the league. Matter of fact, 2/3 of them are still not in the league, Charlton.
Yeah.
And to bring him in on this day, this is a lot of publicity that's been given already prior to Saturday.
Yep.
Will this clear the team's ledger, saying, okay, we gave the guy a look-see and he didn't have what we thought he'd have? You can't say that with the inept quarterback play that's going on in the NFL right now.
Yeah, we've seen it. And when something doesn't feel right, we can all sit back and act like, well, it's not my problem. It's my neighbor's house that's on fire, not my house. But when it's your house, you want to call the fire department and have them put it out. When an injustice is done against somebody else, sometimes we turn the other cheek and say, well, it's not my problem. I don't want to get involved. But when it happens to you or someone you love, then you want law enforcement to get involved. Well, when it comes to liberty and justice for all, the NFL, we know, they can do what they want to do. They don't have to pay taxes on their income, Big C, the owners don't. But fairness is fairness. So I want to get your thoughts on a couple of teams. And you just give me your thoughts just like you did with baseball, where guys would fit in your opinion. I think teams that Colin Kaepernick could potentially help next year. I would say the Cincinnati Bengals, but that would be a mistake if he said yes to them, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Cincinnati Bengals need all the help. I mean, yes, Colin Kaepernick could help that organization. You can't tell me the 2 quarterbacks that they've played this year, Andy Dalton and Jeff Driscoll, are better than Colin Kaepernick.
No way.
He has a better career record than either one of those guys, Charlton, and we've seen how in that offense is right now.
Yeah, we've seen that. So if I bring it to a quarterback that was a lot like Colin Kaepernick when he played at Stanford and also for the Denver Broncos, and also said when he got drafted, he was going to choose what team he played for. Didn't want to go for the team that drafted him. I wanted to draft him out of college. I think that was the Baltimore Colts at the time. The great Denver Broncos, led by John Elway. Kaepernick he's a bigger, stronger, faster John Elway, who happens to be a Hall of Famer. Why would Elway not bring this guy in, who's a bigger, stronger, better, faster version than what he was, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, there was a couple years ago where Elway was thought to have tried to make a move for Colin Kaepernick while he was in San Francisco. And you look at the plight of the quarterbacks that he's had in Denver, Charlton, this would be the right move for John Elway if he's looking to save this organization and put a quarterback back there with some mobility. We know that offensive line they have is very, very leakage up front, Charlton. We've seen the stationary quarterbacks they had. Mobility would help their offense with the fine running game that they have.
He's a better and let me get your thoughts on it, because when Elway played, he's a guy that they love now, that run pass option. He can get out of the pocket. He wasn't fast to run downfield, but he was a good scrambler, Elway. Even out of, I think he played down in Southern California in high school and then went to Stanford. His father coached him, the great late Jack Elway, Big C. Why would he not want to give this guy a fair offer? Your thoughts?
Well, maybe, Charlton, because he wore the same number 7 that he wore, and he may not want to see someone else shine wearing those digits on his back.
Sometimes ego makes us do things. The Miami Dolphins, this is a team, it's a warm weather climate. I think Colin would excel down in Florida. There's a lot of people that have their own opinions. Again, controversy sells. Look at what's going on in the White House. I think he would be great for this Dolphins team. They're a young team, but they're showing a lot of moxie lately, and I think he would ignite that offense, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Miami, I think, would be a perfect landing spot. This is a team that's on the rebuild. They need a quarterback with some electricity, and Colin Kaepernick to potentially bring it to that organization, Charlton. They have a lot of draft picks that they've stockpiled, and they can bring in a young quarterback behind him to learn for a year or two.
I love that thinking, but what I love even more, New York City, they say if you can make it in New York City, you can make it anywhere. And New York is about winning. I mean, Mayor Bloomberg, he wants to win. He wants to put his hat in the ring to become POTUS. Don't think it's going to happen. But when you look at the New York Giants, they have Daniel Jones, they have Eli Manning. Both of these guys are just not good quarterbacks. Saquon Barkley, who was just a stud of an athlete, but when you know your quarterback can't pass, they're going to tee off on him and stop the run the same way the Minnesota Vikings did to Dallas and Ezekiel Elliott. But if you put a guy like Colin Kaepernick in the backfield, if the Mara family is listening, you got a guy that's a run-pass option like Lamar Jackson down there in Baltimore. Also like Watson down in Houston. Like Russell Wilson in Seattle. Russell Wilson and Colin Kaepernick used to battle each other. Colin Kaepernick beat Russell Wilson. If you could get him in New York, you got Saquon Barkley in the back for a Big C. Do you stop the run or the pass? Your thoughts?
Well, I think he would be an asset for the Giants. And when you look at the history of the Mara family, that they employed a wife beater. I don't know how you could say that you could employ and stand behind a wife beater who beat his wife 21 times and with police answering the calls on those, Charlton, versus a guy who stood up for social injustice. I mean, this would be a perfect segue for them for the wrong that they've done in the past to right the ship, Charlton. And Daniel Jones is not NFL ready, and Eli Manning won't be there next year.
That would make so much sense. And you tell me about getting the New York media hype. You got Sam Darnold, Sam Mononucleosis Darnold, sitting over there for the New York Jets. He's not Broadway Joe, but maybe he tried to keep up with Joe in the kids in the department, Big C. At the same time, if you really want to put people in the seats, and I know they sell out anyway, but add some energy into MetLife Stadium. Bring in Colin Kaepernick. Cut out all the racism. A lot of these guys won't even be alive in 20 years, these owners. Don't you want to win now? Bring the man in. Let him compete with Daniel Jones. Let him compete with Eli Manning. And see if he can get the Giants back into the playoffs, Big C. Dak Prescott and the Philadelphia Eagles with Carson Wentz, they have the quarterbacks that are approaching that. And also Haskins in Washington. They have these guys that can run and pass the ball, Big C. I think it'd be a great choice. New York Jets, if the Giants are dumb enough to keep a wife beater and their kicker kept him with 20 police calls, he beat up his wife, the Mara family hid it. They hid it the same way you hide cookies. Well, the Jets, if the Giants are too dumb, maybe the Jets could. Because they could have a guy who could run and pass as opposed to throw an interception and seeing ghosts. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I look at both New York teams, Charlton, they both have outstanding running backs. Le'Veon Bell with the Jets, Saquon Barkley with the Giants. Both of those would would benefit greatly from the addition of Colin Kaepernick with the mobility that he possesses and the ability to throw the ball over the top. I think he has a stronger arm than both of the young quarterbacks in New York.
Yep.
And it wouldn't hurt either one of them to sit down and let the game slow down in front of them for a year or two.
I agree. I also want to go back south, Big C. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I like Winston because he's a good bad guy. He's a good cop, bad cop. You never know which one you're going to get. You just hope that they're acting right when they pull up on you. And when he shows up to play football, he's good quarterback, bad quarterback. But I still think he has potential. But no one in the sports universe can say that Winston is a better performer than Colin Kaepernick. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I think about the receiving core that they have down in Tampa, Jameis Winston has evolved this year, getting the ball to the receivers, but he's still very turnover prone. I think with Colin Kaepernick in that system under Bruce Arians and Brian Leftwich at the quarterback position coaching, Charlton, would be a great addition to that program. You know, Tampa has struggled over the years trying to find an identity, but to bring in a different idea and mindset of Colin Kaepernick, I think would be great for that organization. And I think Jameis Winston would flourish with another program.
I think sometimes you just got to make the move. You got to try. Give it a try. Just give it a try. Chicago Bears, Windy City. And again, Kaepernick played up in Nevada where they get snow in some of their games. And then again, he went up to New England and beat them kind of in a snow blizzard, if you want to call it that. This guy can play in all kind of weather. And you can't tell me that Trubisky is better than what you saw with Kaepernick. But Kaepernick had good receivers and a healthy offensive line and a good defense. I mean, just look at that. Why would you not want that? They saw what he did to Green Bay against Discount Double Check a couple of times in the playoffs, Big C. They could get this guy on their side. Khalil Mack on one side, Colin Kaepernick on the other. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Colin Kaepernick, I think, would flourish in Chicago when you look at the offensive talent that they have, Charlton, at receiver and running back. They need a capable quarterback. Mitch Trubisky has struggled mentally and physically in this system, Charlton, in his second year, and I don't know if he's going to get any better in his next year.
Probably not. It would pain me to see this because I want Haskins to develop. But the Washington Redskins, Colin look at their college numbers. They're similar college numbers, Big C. And then NFL-wise, Colin Kaepernick, when he had a team that believed in him and gave him a good offensive line, the man's just an amazing athlete. You can't tell me he's not. But I wouldn't want to see him take Haskins' job, but it's all fair and love and war, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it is. Haskins is going to get an opportunity to start the rest of the season with the Washington Redskins, but if that doesn't pan out, it's great to have a veteran quarterback, Charlton, with some winning tradition behind you. And so anytime you look at an opportunity for a young quarterback, even an older quarterback like Colin Kaepernick, you want somebody with experience. We saw the success that Alex Smith had in that organization. We saw the success Colin Kaepernick had after Alex Smith. Could it duplicate itself in Washington?
That's a good choice. Big C, you know, California is amazing. California love! They're building a new $5 billion stadium in Inglewood, still a Los Angeles suburb, right across from where the LA Forum is, Big C. You know how the Lakers had Showtime. Bring Colin Kaepernick into LA with Showtime, a very diverse city in Los Angeles, a city that doesn't have some of these racist tendencies that a lot of other cities do back east, where people will say, oh, we're integrated, but they're all segmented. They're all like red lined off, Big C. People don't integrate and then they go to a sports franchise. I think he would be perfect for Los Angeles. Number one is to meet Hollywood is like the entertainment capital of the world. This man has a social consciousness that's very progressive for the fifth largest economy in the world in California. And he's more LA than he would be Midwest, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that would most likely be the perfect fit of all, the Los Angeles Chargers, Charlton. Phillip Rivers is in his option year of his contract. This is a team that's set personnel-wise when you think of where they are offensively and defensively talent. Colin Kaepernick would fold right into that program, Charlton, with the Los Angeles Chargers and be an instant hit. Not only that, you're moving into an environment, Charlton, that understands social differential in Los Angeles.
Very well said.
And Colin Kaepernick has made many appearances in Los Angeles at the ESPYs and other events, and he has never been booed. And I think when you look at the diversity of that market, that he would be accepted and everything would not be looked at from what had occurred before.
I agree. That makes so much sense. We could stop, but we won't stop, Big C. I want to look at some teams on the fringe. Is it anathema to say New England Patriots? Because Tom Brady, at some point in time, that hourglass runs out of sand, and he may have another year good, and maybe two. I doubt it, but maybe a good 1 year. This might be that year. But everything starts to age, and it's not the same. You can pretend it is, but it's not. If he had a guy like Belichick calling shots on the offensive side, you know, Kaepernick was throwing to Randy Moss at one time. Tom Brady was throwing to Randy Moss. Both of them got the Super Bowls, Big C. I'm not saying that they're going to find a receiver like Moss, but they can find a quarterback who is more mobile than Tom Brady. And when he was in New England, last time he played there, he beat Tom Brady, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at New England, sometimes people think the strangest of fits are the best fits. Tom Brady's in the option year of his contract. Colin Kaepernick is that breed of quarterback that Bill Belichick has faced as of late and struggled with.
Yep.
When you look at Deshaun Watson in Houston, he struggled with him. You look at Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, he struggled with him. And we know what Lamar Jackson did the last time that they faced each other.
Yeah.
So Bill Belichick has been one of those guys who's adapted to the game as it's evolved. Colin Kaepernick, he knows of Colin Kaepernick's abilities. He's played against him.
Yeah.
People say this would be a strange fit. This could be even a better fit than the fit in Los Angeles.
Big C, you got to copycat your way to success at times. People do it all the time. You just copy the leader. You follow the leader. If you're not a bigot, then you don't worry about what skin color. If someone stands, for social justice, and a bigot says, well, they're against the American flag. No, he was for the American flag, liberty and justice for all. And that's what he stood for. I think New England is a very smart organization. If they're about winning, you would be dumb not to at least give that man a try the same way he was given an opportunity to coach there. Detroit Lions, I just don't want to see him go to Detroit because the organization is so dysfunctional, Big C, but he would be better than Stafford. Your thoughts?
Well, Matt Patricia, is a guy who has to face Lamar Jackson and quarterbacks like that in years to come. Matthew Stafford has a back injury. When you got a broken bone in your back, Charlton, that puts some limitations on the rest of your career.
Yeah.
Detroit is probably going to be looking to move on from him and his big contract in the near future.
Yeah, that makes sense if it did that, Big C. But I want to go to the city that's the most progressive city for men of color in the South would be the city of Atlanta. It's a progressive city. It's a city of diversity. It's a city that had African-American mayors. I mean, they have just everything there seems to be new within the last 5 years, it seems. Football, basketball, baseball. They have a new soccer team. They have everything in Atlanta. And they have an owner that reached out to the neighborhood and got people some job training when they put together that Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Why not bring a player that actually was down there in the South working out and give him a chance to throw the ball to Julio Jones? Give him a chance to have a run-pass option when you got Julio Jones and guys like Sanu that you could throw the ball to. And I know you might love Matt Ryan, but you got 2 wins this year. You tell me he's not worth trying to get 7 to 10 wins, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I put Atlanta in that mix because think about where they're holding the workout. They're holding it at the Atlanta Falcons practice facility.
Yeah.
Arthur Blank has been very progressive and innovative as far as his interactions within the community and the NFL. He's one of those guys that's not always concerned about what the populace think, Charlton. So I think there's something to do with him having the workout at Flowery Branch at the Atlanta Falcons facility.
I love when you have men who are not afraid to say, I'm not a bigot. You can say, I'm not a bigot, but you got to show you're not a bigot. If you're not a sexist, then give women a chance. If you're not a bigot, don't worry about what color somebody is. If a man is taking a stance for social equality for everybody, who doesn't want that for their family or people they hire, Big C? Just my thoughts. I want to close out with Big C Sports in the final segment, NCAA college football. And I know it's hard to get better than what we had last week with Alabama and LSU, Big C. Also Penn State and then Minnesota. But if you look at college football, this is really upset alert for number 23 Navy. They're at number 16 Notre Dame, just coming off of celebrating all the military veterans. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I look at Notre Dame and Navy, Charlton, this is a long-standing college football rivalry. We think about the big boys in the Power 5 conference, but when I look at the midshipmen and the character that they have when they come in and play football, Charlton, they're always undersized against an opponent. But they run that wishbone attack, Charlton, to perfection. And that's what big players have a problem with, is the cut blocking week in, week out, and people pounding the ball down their throat.
Yeah.
I like Navy in this game. They're an 8.5-point underdog, Charlton. but I like Navy to knock off Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, they got lucky with that win over Virginia Tech. We know they struggled against Virginia. It's nice for the military to just win. It doesn't matter who they play. It's nice to see them win. I want to go to the Midwest. And, Warren Buffett's from Nebraska, Big C, I believe, Omaha area. But the biggest state, or the biggest city in the state, is Lincoln whenever they have Saturday football. And you look at Tom Osborne Field, Nebraska football, has it gone too far for even Scott Frost? And Nebraska loves Scott Frost. The story that started off with a great script 2 years ago, former quarterback for the Huskers, and head coach now, holds the firm to Tom Osborne's formula that defines the once mighty program. I remember watching this Nebraska program. They would always end up in the Orange Bowl, usually playing, Miami or Penn State or someone that they would put up against them down in the Orange Bowl when they had the Big 8 conference. I remember them coming out to the Rose Bowl playing UCLA back in the day when the Bruins were good, Big C. But this program, how did it fall into the abyss now, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they fell into the abyss, Charlton, with the conference that they went into. When they went into the Big Ten, for football mainly, they got lost, Charlton, as far as just talent. You weren't going to be able to recruit the talent to compete in the Big Ten on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
They were fine when they were in the Big 8, but they keep that old-time mentality. When Frost left Central Florida, when he went undefeated down there at a 14-0 record, Charlton, and he showed up in Nebraska, there was a big difference. He had talent at Central Florida. He did not have the talent at Nebraska. You can no longer rely on that homegrown talent that Tom Osborne used to develop there in Nebraska. He also used to tiptoe into Los Angeles and get some key positional players, Charlton, to help that Nebraska program.
Yeah.
But today's modern football, Charlton, and the teams that they have to compete with, that old-style brand of recruiting and developing players is not going to work out there on the plains if you want to be competitive on a national level.
I remember there's a story, the reason Nebraska actually left the Big 8, Big 12 conference, they had a game versus Texas, and they thought that they had won that game, and the officials somehow let Texas kick a field goal, and there's a lot of shenanigans about it, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and so they knew they were a cash cow for the Big 8, Big 12 conference, and they decided to go to what they thought were greener pastures, and they went to the Big 10, Big C. But there's also politics in sports, and you have sometimes a call, is a penalty or is it not a penalty? Is it holding? Is it not holding? And it's hard to go there and break the tradition. They're the new kid in town, and they've never really been welcomed by that Big Ten officiating crew. That's just my opinion. I would love to see, and it's not going to happen because some things just don't go back. I love when Colorado and Nebraska and Texas and Oklahoma were those four pillars of power in that Big 8 conference. And we know money changes things. And sometimes people leave a job because they think they're going to find greener pastures. Or they leave a relationship because they think the grass is greener on the other side until they realize there's thorns. And so I think they found a lot of thorns in the Big 10. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they have. The road has not been smooth. It's been very bumpy, Charlton, and it's not going to smooth out anytime soon. When I think about Scott Frost, was he the guy to go back home? I mean, where he was down in Central Florida was a great situation for him, and he thought that, going back to Nebraska, he could rekindle something that used to be there but is no longer there.
Yep.
There are a couple of openings in college football. He was in Central Florida, had success. Could he go to Florida State and rekindle the success he had at Central Florida?
Well, he wouldn't be a stranger walking into the recruiting dorms of those places, Big C. I want to jump to another spot down south because over the next 3 weeks, Big C, Auburn University, Oregon Tigers, I still don't know why the mascot's a War Eagle, but they're going to be in the middle of a lot of action, even though the Tigers are on the outside playoff race. They can't talk a playoff race, in my opinion. Number 13, Auburn, they played two top 5 contenders, number 4, Georgia, and then number 5, Alabama at home in November. If they're going to beat one of these two teams, I think they have a better chance beating Georgia than beating Alabama. That's my opinion, but you're down south, Big C. I want to get your thoughts.
Well, Georgia is the number 4 ranked team in the country right now, and they've caught their stride. Their passing game right now with Jacob Fromm is exciting. It's exhilarating. And then when you look at Swift, the running back that they have, I mean, he's just like his name. He's very swift.
Yep.
This Auburn Tiger team, Charlton, struggles with Bo Nix at quarterback throwing the ball down the field. That's their Achilles heel. And when they're without their top running back, I don't see them really having a chance against Georgia. And they play them this weekend, Charlton, at home. And Georgia's going to bring a lot of momentum into that game after their big win over the weekend, last weekend versus Missouri.
Yeah, I look forward to just seeing it. There's something about it etched in everybody's mind when Alabama lost to Auburn the last time. I think it was a return punt. Maybe it was a kickoff. I know it was a return about 100 yards for a touchdown. And that was like the Cal, Berkeley, and Stanford game back in the 82, I believe. And the band is out of the field. And Cal and Stanford went down to the wire, and the Golden Bears won on a fluke play. Auburn beat Alabama in similar fashion on a fluke play. What's to stop it from happening again this time for the Tide, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the last time that they did beat them on that, it was a return missed field goal, Charlton, for 100 yards, and knocked Alabama out of the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
But even so, Charlton, they knocked Alabama out of the SEC championship game. Alabama went on to win the national title.
Yeah.
I don't think that Auburn has that type of flair. You know, Tua was banged up in that game against LSU. And so, you know, he may or may not play this upcoming weekend versus Mississippi State, game time decision. Mississippi State won't be a tough opponent, but they'll have Alabama the following week in the Iron Bowl, Charlton, and that's for all the marbles in the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
This will be a very emotional, hard-fought game. A lot of kids that grew up against and with each other, Charlton, playing that college football game. And it's going to be down in Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn, Charlton. So this will be a tough game for both opponents, but I see Alabama. They just have too much firepower. When we look at the receiving core they have, LSU and Alabama have two of the top receiving cores in the country.
Yeah.
I don't think that Auburn has any defensive backs that can keep up with Alabama.
It's so great this time of year for football. I want to, because I have West Coast people that might throw darts at me if I don't mention, and I know when you say Auburn has no chance to beat Alabama. That really is the Pac-12's only. I don't think Utah's going to get in. They lost to USC at the Coliseum. The same program that Oregon put up 50 points on, I think 54 points, at the same turf, same Coliseum with the White Horse. If there's any shoe-in for Oregon, and I still don't think it's going to happen unless a lot of teams lose ahead of them. So Auburn losing, or even winning especially, I don't think it helps Oregon either, Big C. I think they should just focus on the Rose Bowl because you're not going to have that many people falling, and I hope I'm wrong, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, Auburn. That loss to Auburn means nothing for Oregon, Charlton. They have to win. They still have to face Utah in the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah.
So that one of those teams are just going to automatically eliminate the other one,
yeah.
Charlton. But it's a matter, do they have enough to leapfrog in front of the five teams in front of them?
No.
That's what you have to look at with Oregon and Utah.
Yeah.
What team in front of them is going to lose? You know that in the SEC championship game, you're going to have most likely LSU and Georgia playing each other.
Yeah.
But you got Alabama sitting right there at 5 if one of those teams lose.
Yeah, that's true. Can Wake Forest knock off Clemson? I doubt it. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, Apple iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on my two favorite apps called Google or Alexa. Play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. I want to just throw our hat at something. And you look at basketball. This movie called Rudy, where he couldn't play for Notre Dame, and they kept him on the team because he didn't give up, and he was that little engine that could, Big C. There's the story of Appalachian State where they beat Michigan, and Mighty Michigan. People said, how in the world can they beat Mighty Michigan? Back in the day when Doug Flutie threw the ball into the end zone, and they beat powerful Miami. There's always been an upset here or there. Boise State knocked off Oklahoma in a bowl game, and people thought, Boise, they beat Oklahoma? Well, it happens in basketball, too. College basketball, Tuesday night, Evansville, they got paid $90,000 to go to Rupp Arena and beat #1 Kentucky, and if they were 24-point halftime underdog. Can you understand how you're that small of a program and you knock off the #1 team with all that Southern justice, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you get your biggest payday of the year and you get your biggest victory of the year to go along with that, Charlton. Tiny Evansville was paid to come into Rupp Arena last night and lay down for the mighty Wildcats.
Yeah.
But no one gave the players the memo, Charlton. They went out there and played their hearts out.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you get these young players in these programs like you do at Kentucky, you end up with a lot of one-and-dones each year, is that players don't know how to play consistently early in the season. And that's what we saw with your buddy Calipari and his Wildcats last night, Charlton, after they fell to Evansville.
Yeah, they were Wildcats, and they were partying like it's 1999's Evansville. Congratulations. You always have a chance. And that's all people want. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm going to do a little throwback tonight. I'm going to go back to 1979 in Kansas City, where Daryl Dawkins went up, the Chocolate Thunder, and broke the backboard in a game with the Philadelphia 76ers and the Kansas City Kings. The Kansas City Kings now are the Sacramento Kings. But Daryl Dawkins broke one of his several NBA backboards for the first time that night.
Well, he broke backboards. They're breaking some backs in Washington, D.C., and you can break backs too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, where you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.